We got fireworks on NFL trade deadline day as the Jets completely tank, but the Indianapolis Colts are clearly all in with Daniel Jones after bringing in Sauce Gardner. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the brain, Luke Braun. On today's show, we are going to break down a crazy NFL trade deadline where we saw some wide receivers get moved. The Jets absolutely go full tank mode. The Cowboys make some questionable decisions. The Indianapolis Colts are clearly all in. We got so much to discuss. The Arizona Cardinals are going with Jakobi Brissett. Crazy day in the NFL. We're going to break it all down. Before we get into it, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Reminder that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. Go check that out. Thanks for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Luke, crazy day. What was your initial thought when you saw the news the Indianapolis Colts have traded for Sauce Gardner?
It's, I think, really cool to see a team kind of that didn't think that it was going to be in the place that it is and then kind of say, oh, let's try to solidify this. I praise the Commanders a lot for their offseason. They've been killed by injuries this year, but True. For kind of saying, oh, we were kind of the surprise team. Let's try to make this sustainable rather than trying to, maximize the flash in the pan. The thing about Sauce Gardner is he's a long-term asset for the Colts. Yes. He's not a rental. They're going to keep, they've got him on the first, he just signed the contract that he's playing on. And you don't even have to pay all of it because the Jets have to take on the signing bonus and, money doesn't move that way. So I think they're in a great spot. I think, hey, 2 firsts and AD Mitchell, that's a steep cost. But I simply have to respect the Colts for looking at what's happening with Daniel Jones, that offense going crazy, their defense playing well most of the time too, and saying, let's try to put a linchpin into this that's going to keep it all together. And, if we get unlucky in the playoffs this year, have something we feel good about running back.
Yeah, it's not just a right now, hey, this player gives us a chance like we've seen in recent years. This is a now and the future play to get a number one cornerback in there. And I know that Sauce Gardner hasn't played as well as he did early in his career lately, but I still think that player is in there, and he's still a young enough player where you can get your prime out of him. They had a major need at cornerback as well. This is a perfect fit for the Colts. They want to play more press man coverage than previous versions of the Colts had when they had, Gus Bradley in there playing only zone and things like that. Like, this is under Lou Anarumo, this is a different defense. So I think this move does make sense for the Indianapolis Colts, and my guy Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts broke down the trade as well.
This is not a drill, y'all. The Colts just made a massive trade for Sauce Gardner from the Jets. They sent 2 first-round picks to the Jets. It's a big indication that they are all in. They're thinking Super Bowl or bust now. You don't make a move like this without that in mind. This is the richest trade Chris Ballard has made to date. Gardner signed a 4-year extension worth $120 million this offseason. So this is a long-term investment as well. Remember, they added Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum this offseason. So the Colts believe in their season right now and their long-term future. Get ready for a lot more press man and for Lou Anarumo's defense to be fully unlocked with all that they're going to be able to do in this secondary. Very, very interesting. We're going to have a full live episode for you guys very soon. Locked On Colts on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Now, I do agree. This is a steep price to pay for Sauce Gardner. 2 first-round picks for a cornerback, and A.D. Mitchell was just a mid-round, second-round pick two drafts ago. You know what I mean? It's not like that pick is a mid-rounder that you could just kind of
he's not
whatever,
a random throw-in that you were going to cut next.
That's a valued
camp,
asset, 100%. I know that he's had his struggles this year, but nonetheless, it's a pick that you just used that you're giving up. But at the end of the day, I think what Jake said there and what I was kind of hinting at before, this is to me more of a signal of what the Colts internally think about their team. Like, they think, yeah, we're all in right now. Daniel Jones is our guy. You don't make a move like this and give up 2 future first-round picks. You don't do that if you think you're going to have to go find your quarterback again soon. This tells me that Chris Ballard 100% believes Daniel Jones is our franchise quarterback. That's what I take away from this trade outside of just the yearly ramification of, we need this player in our defense. We're trying to win football games. This is Daniel Jones is our quarterback of the future. We have our team mostly set, and we can afford to go out and make this kind of trade. That's what I'm getting from this.
And they're in a great spot to make that choice cap-wise. They've got $48 million in 2026, over $100 million for all the rest of the years. So in terms of getting whatever signing bonus cash that you have to get together to make that extension happen, and then the real salary cap impacts are you're perfectly free to let them hit in future years and extend whatever other pieces of this offense and defense that you feel are like super vital to it. They have absolutely everything in front of them. All they have to do is pull the right levers and say, we are going to pull this thing together, because a lot of this roster is still under contract. This is not a team that's going to have a ton of needs next offseason. So they can make it the offseason we signed Daniel Jones and didn't do much else and be plenty satisfied with that and say, let's run this thing back and let's make this, let's try to make this like a permanent fixture in the AFC South. And good for them for doing it. And you have a start like this and you want to keep it going.
Yeah, and Sauce Gardner, according to all the reports, wasn't like being shocked. The Colts just called a couple of weeks ago and were like, hey, we want him. What would it take? You know what I mean? So I do applaud them for going all in like this. Well, the question becomes then, Luke, after this move, do you see the Colts as more of a legit Super Bowl contender than they were before? I don't really know. I don't know that Sauce Gardner at this moment in time makes me feel differently about the Colts, but I was higher on the Colts than I think some others were. I already had them in they could come out of the AFC. I don't think that would be crazy. So this makes them better, but I did not believe in them before, and I believe in them now. I just kind of believed in them even before.
There's something to experience when you get to the playoffs, and Daniel Jones has a couple of playoff games, and there's a couple players scattered here and there that have a couple. But I would say that as a unit, this Colts still feels like they would be the newcomer to the AFC, right? When they have to go, they're going to be hosting the Chargers or whoever, doesn't come out of the AFC North. Like they're going to be hosting somebody tough, and it could even be the Steelers who just worked them. Yep. So, making that run right off the bat is a hard ask. But what I will say is the way to be that team is to show up to the dance every single time. Yep. I'm viewing them now as I viewed like the Bucs in the NFC. They're always going to be in there. I would say that the other 3 teams in the AFC South should probably be looking at this and panicking and saying, are the Colts about to rattle off 4 straight AFC South titles? I think that's in the cards if they can keep this together and keep playing the way that they've been playing, obviously. But when you get to the playoffs and it's your first time back there in a while, the first one, I never really have the expectation that you're going to get hot and make a run. But the team that was in it a little bit last year, learned a couple lessons, and is back the next year, that's the 2024 Eagles. Right. That's those are the teams or the 2022 Eagles, if we really, that's the kind of team that can make that sort of noise is a team that's been to the playoffs, has the experience advantage over the other team. And the only way to get there is to be sustainable for a while. Is to have those years where you're maybe an also ran, but you have a lot to build on and you need one more piece and you're going to run it back. So that finding that consistency is what I really, really respect.
And you mentioned the finances earlier. They're going to have to pay less than $1 million on the salary cap this year for Sauce Gardner because of the contract he just signed. They're going to have to pay less than $10 million on the salary cap as a salary cap hit to Sauce Gardner next year as well. So Sauce Gardner's cap hit for the Colts doesn't even balloon up above 20 until 2027. So this just works out in multiple ways for the Colts, and I think it does bolster them. And I believed in them before, so I still believe in them now. But with that being said, another big-time Jets trade. where they send a star defensive player to the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about the day for the Cowboys and the Jets right now. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to potential fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game even more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Again, new customers can get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Luke, we got another big-time trade from the New York Jets on the trade deadline day. It was sending Quinnen Williams to the Dallas Cowboys for another first-round pick, and I thought smart by the Jets to get the 2027 first-round pick from the Dallas Cowboys. But nonetheless, the Cowboys make the big move, and my guy Landon McCool had a lot to talk about on deadline day.
The Dallas Cowboys came into the trade deadline committed to improving their defense, which has been absolutely atrocious this season, and they've made a big swing while trading for Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle from the New York Jets. Hi, I'm Landon McCool with the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and the Cowboys have sent a first round and maybe a little bit more with compensation, still hasn't been announced yet, to the Jets for Quinnen Williams, a 27-year-old defensive tackle who's been one of the best defensive tackles in football for a few years now. This is a major trade for the Cowboys, a move not only obviously for this year, which may or may not be lost at this point, but certainly moving forward, a guy that the Cowboys can build a defensive front around, a high-end player who is worth a first-round pick and is still a very young player. Lots to discuss here. Make sure you guys check us out all week on the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
Massive day. The question is it enough to make the Cowboys defense better? And quite frankly, I don't think that it is enough to make the Cowboys defense better. They get Logan Wilson for a 7th rounder from the Bengals. I don't think that Logan Wilson is going to make a difference. Quinnen Williams is a really good player, but then it's, why did you get Kenny Clark from the Cowboys when you traded for Micah Parsons? Like, you're going to use one of those first-round picks. In the aggregate, I just don't understand why the Cowboys are doing this. If you cared this much about the defense and you wanted to go all in for this year, just keep Micah Parsons. Quinnen Williams is a good player, but they gave up too much for him. And in totality, this isn't enough to fix the defense. And with what they just did against the Cardinals, why would you pick right now to go all in too? I don't know that it makes a difference.
I see this Quinnen Williams thing as kind of a lose-lose, to be honest. I don't think anybody's looking great. Well, I'll get to the Jets in a bit, but with the Cowboys, yeah. To me, the Micah Parsons thing was such an own goal. And getting Quinnen Williams helps soften that blow, but doesn't make up for the thing. Like, that's the way I'm looking at this, is like, all right, they made up for it a little by sort of undoing it. It was a little bit like, selling things back that you wish you didn't buy. For
exactly. It was a return.
Yeah, it was a return for half price where you get one of your firsts back and
It's
or
store
you use
credit,
Luke. You use one of those firsts.
You don't get a full return and get your money back in your hand. We'll give you store credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Jerry Jones has been very vocal about trying to fix that run defense. It didn't fix enough with Kenny Clark because he's washed, so you got to get a player who's less washed. Okay, good job. And maybe Quinnen Williams will be part of whatever the Cowboys are next. But when I think about what teams are next, I cannot really envision what the Jets want. Here's the deal. Woody Johnson sell the team. And I think every Jets season ticket holder should fully sell their season tickets and refuse to renew until Woody Johnson sells the team, because they do not respect their fans. You cannot look a Jets fan in the eye and ask them to come to a game at any point in the next 3 years now. They are in hell. This is an expansion team. The Jets currently have 11 starters that are slated to have expiring contracts over the next 2 off seasons. So they've also have 11 picks in the first 2 rounds over those 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to replace starters with draft picks 11 times. That is something that you hit on at about a 30% clip when you get rid of a starter and you just replace him with a rookie. So you're going to have to hit at a historic clip to make the Jets a good team again, or you're just going to have to wait 6 years. So if I'm a Jets fan, I'm closing my eyes and getting into the New York Islanders for the next 6 years because there's no hope for the Jets right now. I think I will never respect a team that picked top 10 4 out of 5 years, and then 3 years into the build that was supposed to create, you're trading everybody away at the deadline again. Who's to say that the Jets aren't going to go 6-11, 6-11, 7-10, but everyone's going to be so excited about all the draft picks that could be the one that saves the Jets this time that we've been hearing for the last 50 freaking years about the Jets. It's not going to happen again. And in 5 years, they're going to be trading everybody away at the deadline. This time, I'm not going to fall for it. I'm not going to say, oh, good for you. The Jets don't want to win. They want an excuse to lose. Woody Johnson, sell the team.
Well, while I can agree that there are bad owners in the NFL that keep their teams bad because they're bad owners, and the Jets are on that list, I liked what the Jets did today. I think what you can't do is you can't look at mistakes that were made by previous regimes and be beholden to that. You just have to play your hand as it is right now. And the Jets are terrible. They don't have a quarterback. They aren't going to win a lot of games the rest of the year. By the time that they are good, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, are they going to be around? Are they going to be as good as you need them to be? And also, I think that all of the trades that the Jets made here give them the ability to get their franchise quarterback, which is what is going to get people to buy tickets and go see the game and be excited and all that. So it's like it's never worked before, so it's not going to work this time. And you're probably right about that. You look at Jets history, I can't tell you that you're going to be wrong. But what I can say is when you're a crappy team that's not winning any games, holding on to these players that aren't going to make a difference, it's like I can go 1-16 with you. I can go 1-16 without you. So I just think that the Jets are in a situation where they're not going to win a lot of games. And the version of the Jets that does the next good team that the New York Jets have, I don't think it's because Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams are good. I think it's because they draft and hit on guys in the draft who are the new good players on the team. So I'm just kind of like, I get what you're saying, and I agree that the Jets are bad and they're probably going to stay bad. But if you know that your team isn't going anywhere and you know that it's going to be a couple of years to rebuild it because the guy who rebuilt it before you didn't do a good job, I don't mind trading away his players and trying to get started on redoing things. Does that mean it's going to work? You're probably right, Luke. It's probably not going to work. And the Jets would be better off if Woody Johnson would sell the team. I don't dispute either of those. But I also do think that what they did today, loading up on draft picks, 5 first-round picks in the next few years, I think that is the right way to go about handling where they are right now, in their position right now.
So I want the Jets are a team that's only looking at the future, clearly, right? They don't care about what the team is right now. And I get that, sure.
Yes.
You're going to kind of be a little disrespectful to your fans right now. And I think fans are right to be angry about that if they are. But at least I understand, okay, the Jets are only looking at the future. But if I look at these teams that go into these full-scale blow-it-up rebuilds, and the ones that work and the ones that don't, right? And I even look at previous iterations of the Jets with like Zach Wilson or even Sam Darnold. There are two things about the way that the Jets, from regime to regime to regime, it's always been the through line. And there's only one guy that's been in the building for the whole time, and that's Woody Johnson. And actually, the Jets had the most hope when he was off in London doing his thing, and then he came back and fired Robert Saleh, and like 4-17 since that happened. So like the bad ownership is part of it. But if I look at teams that make it work, it's they find their quarterback and that quarterback has at least something around them so that their development doesn't get screwed. I think about like the Bears in 2021, and Justin Fields came in as this extremely exciting player and just couldn't develop because the Bears were too dysfunctional around them. And I look at, the Zach Wilson Jets in kind of that same way, or the Trevor Lawrence Jaguars, I think are maybe the best example of this, where they're topping out at mediocrity because they were so unbelievably broken and bad when Trevor Lawrence got there. It took so long to rebuild that roster, but that by the time you actually had anything reasonable around him, it was already so much damage had been done. So if I'm the Jets right now, do I even want my franchise quarterback on this horrible roster of XFL cast-offs? Because that's what it's going to have to be. And all the cap space that the Jets are going to have and all the draft picks that they're going to have, a lot of that's going to have to go to just finding a Band-Aid so that you don't go 0-17 and become infamous for being bad again. And especially for it to become all for naught, like what Sashi did with the Browns, go 0-16, get infamy, top out at mediocrity. The Dolphins go, what was it, the 2019 tank year, get sued for it and have this whole big expose, infamy, top out at 7th seed, mediocrity. So I've seen a lot of these teams get really exciting because of what could be. And then when it's time to actually turn that into something real, they top out at mediocrity. So the question I have for the Jets is, can you do anything but lose? It's really easy to lose. You could give me any job in the NFL. I would lose. I could do it. I can lose. Pay me.
I could do it.
I could lose so many games in the NFL. It's so easy to lose, but it's hard to win. And all the Jets have done is given themselves an excuse to be losers and for everyone to be okay with it. So they get to take the easy way out for 2-3 years now. And I'm going to guess everybody in that organization is going, my career is not surviving this.
Well, I don't know if they should. I don't know that Aaron Glenn is a good head coach anyway. You know what I mean? But all I would say is the Jets have given themselves quite a few picks in 2027 too. So even if they don't like the quarterbacks in this draft, they still have the ability to get a quarterback in 2027. And I don't think that, they'll have to spend too much to get a Band-Aid quarterback this year, kind of like how they did with Justin Fields. But either way, it'll be interesting to see what the Jets do with all this newly acquired draft ammo. But some other teams made some trades on trade deadline day, particularly 2 trades with wide receivers as Jakobi Meyers goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars and Rashid Shaheed goes to the Seattle Seahawks. And I particularly like that trade for the Seahawks. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. B-I-L-T. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. Whether I'm grabbing food from a local restaurant, heading to the gym, I'm still earning rewards. Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so they know that we sent you. All right, Luke, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL, going over all the trade deadline activity. The Indianapolis Colts get saucy with a Sauce Gardner trade. The Cowboys are going all in for 2025. The New York Jets are all out on 2025. But some teams in the middle that are still trying to stay afloat here made some wide receiver trades. And we got some big news just now from the Arizona Cardinals about their quarterback position. Do want to thank you again for making Locked On NFL your first listen, though. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But we start with what I think was the best low-key trade of the day, and it's the New Orleans Saints sending wide receiver Rashid Shaheed to the Seattle Seahawks for a 4th and a 5th round pick. And my guy Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints gave us the Saints perspective here because I think it was a good move by them as well.
The New Orleans Saints finally make a move at the trade deadline, sending wide receiver Rashid Shaheed to the Seattle Seahawks in return for 4th and 5th round selections in the 2026 NFL Draft. This does 2 big things for the New Orleans Saints. Number one, if you're going to send out talent like Rashid Shaheed, you better get good value back, and they did. They got a 4th and a 5th round selection this upcoming year's draft. That's a 3rd round value with the price that wide receivers were already moving throughout the day, especially Jakobi Meyers. The New Orleans Saints outdid the market. So that's number one. Number two is that you were trying to recoup a little bit of what you gave up for Devon Vele, the wide receiver that the Saints have inexplicably underutilized so far this season. You got that value back. Plus, now you have the snaps available to actually get him more involved in your offense. So This is going to do a lot for New Orleans. Now they got to make sure that they use the draft capital correctly, which has not been their strongest suit over the course of the past few years, but maybe 2025 shows a little bit of a turning of that fortune as they move forward. Not sure if the New Orleans Saints are done here either, by the way. The Indianapolis Colts, according to reports, were, quote, in the mix for...
Sorry, Ross, but it turns out the Saints were done after all. But I like the move for the Saints. At the end of the day, they're not going anywhere. Shaheed is on an expiring contract. He's going to go into free agency. He's going to go get signed by somebody else. You can either wait for the compensatory pick in 2027 or you can go try to get something now. I think to get a 4th-round pick and a 5th-round pick is really, really good return for Rashid Shaheed. I mean, that's a relative unknown name a couple of years ago before he burst onto the scene. But I love that deal for Seattle. They got some extra draft capital back from trading DK Metcalf. You get a speed wide receiver in there. Look, Cooper Kupp is about done. But Torrey Horton has been fantastic as a rookie. We know Jackson Smith-Njigba has been one of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL this year, and you get a guy like Shaheed who can take advantage. You know better than anybody, Luke. Sam Darnold, when he's at his best, can throw that deep ball. And now you got somebody to go get it.
Yeah, the fit makes so much sense for Seattle.
It's great.
And like the vibes in Seattle are on the ceiling right now, considering the
Yes.
Sunday night blowout.
Yes.
And then, hey, let's get Sam Darnold another deep threat. That's super awesome. Keep stretching the field. I love that for them. For the Saints, like I get it with the situation that Shaheed is in. You're probably not extending him. You're in your cap held thing and you're trying to just get the value that you can back. And the way to dig out of that for the Saints is going to have to be through the draft. You just have to get a lot of young, cheap talent in and just keep this thing afloat while your dead cap hits expire. But for the Saints, it has felt this way for me for a couple of years where they're just chasing their mistakes. It's a similar thing to what I'm saying about the Cowboys and Quinnen Williams, where it's like, okay, that's fine, good for you, but you didn't need to be in this position in the first place. And they've been chasing their mistakes for a while, so it feels to me still like everything that happens in New Orleans is just deck chairs on the Titanic. And it feels to me I'm putting them in a similar category to where the Jets are going, where it's like, I just don't need to look at you for like 3 years, and we'll talk when you're ready to be a contender again. But right now, the Saints have so many of their own internal kind of self-inflicted wounds that they are healing from that, yeah, it makes sense that you're not going to give a big money extension to Rashid Shaheed, go get your draft picks or whatever. But it just doesn't move the needle for me at all because it just sort of softens a blow that they had already inflicted on themselves.
Yeah, the Vele trade was absolutely ridiculous. And that was an organization who had no idea, no self-awareness and no idea who they were going to be this year. That was always insane. But regardless, I still think both teams did relatively well in that one. Now we move to another wide receiver trade where the Jacksonville Jaguars go out and get another wide receiver, and they get Jakobi Meyers from the Las Vegas Raiders. And my guy Tony Wiggins, the barber himself, who does the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL, talked about the move.
All right, instant reaction. Headed to the barbershop to get a haircut, and I found out the Jaguars have traded for wide receiver Jakobi Meyers from the Las Vegas Raiders. I actually told Q Myers from Locked On Raiders, don't be surprised if the Jaguars trade for a player right after they played the team, because this is like the 3rd time it's happened. It happened with the Saints, and it happened with the 49ers, even though that was a practice squad quarterback. But this instantly helps the Jaguars at a need position right now because of injuries, and likely just the kind of move that they needed to make anyway to lift up and boost that entire room. Interested to see what the compensation is, but we'll have a full report on Locked On Jaguars later on today.
I don't understand what the Jags are doing. I know that
they're just trying to replace Travis Hunter, I think, right?
I know that he's out, but like, you got Brian Thomas Jr. with a 1st-round pick. Then you signed Daimi Brown, and you barely use him. Parker Washington is a pretty good option. You just traded a bunch of picks up for Travis Hunter. Like, I just don't see how this team can continuously flood so many assets into one position for it to not even be that great. Like, this seems like an impatient move from the Jags in a season where there's no guarantee that they're even going to make the playoffs. Like, they're just an okay team. I just don't understand the impatience from the Jaguars here.
I think impatience is a great theme for the trade deadline. A lot of what has happened here has been born of impatience. And I would levy that criticism at the Jets very hard, right? They finally put half of a roster together, and it's not immediately the best team in the league, and they throw it all away when it's clear the problem there was that they couldn't get a quarterback. And to me, this is it's the same thing. It's okay to just wait for your guys to come back next year if they're out for the year or if they're out for a little while. It's all right to say, injury bug got us. Let's learn what we did well this year and try to improve upon it. Right. But I think too many, especially, the Zoomer Zillennial GM in Jacksonville, right? Playing it like a video game, man. Playing it like the only way to solve a problem is to change the who. But there's the what, the when, and the why when it comes to what a team is trying to do. There's your scheme, there's your timings of things, there's the reasonings, there's the philosophies. You can make so many changes without spending any draft capital that could potentially fix your issues. So to me, when I see teams like the Jaguars, and they've been like this since I was a kid, when I see teams like the Jaguars basically trying to throw assets at every problem that they have, to me, I see that you are a bad problem solver, and the only thing that you know that can solve the issues that you have is to throw an asset at it and hope another player comes in and does the thing. Rather than being able to self-reflect and self-scout and say, oh no, this is what we're doing wrong. If we make this change, it'll get better. If we make this change, it'll get better. And over time, you can build something that incrementally improves week in and week out, year in and year out. If you want to look at the best franchises in the league that are always in it, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Packers, those are the franchises that are doing that.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit impatient by Jacksonville, and I agree with you that I think they have enough assets at wide receiver already where they had the answers there. They didn't have to do this, and I don't think it's worth it, quite frankly, with where the Jags are at this season and what they've proven so far. I don't think that they've proven, and you're right, the GM, to me, that is, hey, our coach can't figure this out, so I have to go get another player. To me, that's how I would look at it, is I don't have a lot of faith in my coach to figure this out schematically. But we saw Joe Tryon-Shoyinka get moved to the Chicago Bears from the Browns. We saw Trevor Penning, the former bust offensive lineman for the Saints, get moved to the Los Angeles Chargers as they tried to deal with their offensive line issues that they have going on and all the injuries there. Yeah, so there were some moves. I think there was a small trade for a defensive back that happened. But honestly, the trades that did happen, the big-time trades were big. But as you were saying, Luca, as a whole, the NFL's trying to make this like the NBA trade deadline. And I wouldn't say today lived up to that hype outside of the big-name trades.
It never does. The NBA is different. And the big key difference is that the NBA's trade deadline is way later in the season. So like imagine the trade deadline around Thanksgiving and you have a 3-8 team that knows it's done. The motivations might be a little different. But right now, nobody is mathematically eliminated. Even the Jets could technically go on a run and get the right tiebreakers. And so you get a lot fewer teams in that mentality. Everybody looks at it. It's the fourth quarter and it's 34-10. Everybody thinks they could technically do it. And that's, I think, a mentality that makes the NFL beautiful. That's a beautiful delusion, and I hope it never changes.
Exactly.
But it does mean that when you look at trade deadline stuff, you're looking for Rashid Shaheed type situations of, okay, this guy's not going to get extended. There's not much left on his contract. And the team is maybe looking to go a different direction. How do they maximize their value? That's how you predict who gets traded. That was like the Quinnen Williams situation. To me, the Sauce Gardner situation doesn't line up with that, and it's why I levy more criticism at the Jets. I know they got a lot, but they just extended him this year. That, to me, is so unfocused and disorganized, You can't extend players and then immediately turn around and say, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. You were either wrong 6 months ago or you're wrong now. Things don't change nearly that materially over 6 months. Somewhere along the line, you were an idiot, and now you have to answer for that.
I got to tell you, Luke, I just fundamentally disagree on the Sauce Gardner thing. I think they gave him his money because they should have given him his money. And it's like when you have a house. Is your house for sale? No. But if you came to my house right now and offered me $1.5 million for my $500,000 house, I don't want to move, but I'm moving. And the Colts just gave an astronomical deal. But we could go back and relitigate that, rewind back to the first segment. You'll hear it all. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Brain, Luke Braun. As we always tell you, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.